everybody. Thank you for being here again and for participating in this fugitive choreography of possibilities, this opening, um, this tumulus, this gathering in Ghostlight. I see beautiful faces here. You're calling in from everywhere that I don't know where you're calling in from, but it would be nice. It would be nice if we unmuted ourselves and shouted it out and contributed to the gods of noise. And just meet each other in that cacophony. So is it possible? Just unmute yourself. You have the power to do so. And let's greet each other in the language you
Hi.
want to play with, the vibes you want to
Buenos
play with.
días, primos.
Hello from Minnesota,
Hi.
muchachos.
Morning, everyone.
Yes.
Beautiful being
안녕하세요.
in
Nina,
Connecticut.
I don't know where you are, but thanks so
Hello, hello.
Welcome.
Minaton.
Thank you.
Saludos.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And if you could do that, you could also just put it in a chat. Just tell us where you're sitting at, what's supporting your feet, your body. What did you have for breakfast? What are you having for dinner, if it's possible? Um, and how are you showing up? Ooh, someone's from Uganda over here, from India, from Paris, Ohio, the UK, Pakistan. Thank you. Thank you. This feels right. Budapest. I greet you all again, and I thank you for coming to the second class of Ghostlights of the Political. I want to give thanks to our hosts, McAllister College, for breaking the ivory tower and making this class available to the public, um, and supporting families, especially in Minnesota, with those of you who have contributed to this free gift of a vocation. Thank you, and thank you again. And this is session 2. There's a lot of stuff to get through, but I wanted to start out with maybe just a sitting with, for a brief moment, what emerged for you in the first session. If you're asking questions, and maybe I can only take about 3, but what's emerging may not even be a question, maybe something you sat with, or a question that doesn't require an answer at the moment. So if you like to do that, and I'm really horrible at doing this, very shitty at doing this stuff, but if you can raise your digital hand, that could work. Debbie was ready. Debbie
Thank
was
you
just
so
like that.
much.
Just like
I missed being with everyone, but I studied the video, and there was something that you were going on about that I can't really say as beautifully as you, but it had to do with experience and
yes.
consciousness. So you'll have to say it better than I can, but that's the line that you kept coming back to. Experience precedes consciousness, or like I can't say it. You know what I'm speaking of.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
do. I do. In brief, we often believe that we have experience. Our language betrays a kind of linearity, that experience is interior to us. We have experience. What is occluded when we speak this way and when we habituate our conversations in this way is all the ways that what we count as ours is actually subsidized by the world beyond us, right? How microbes and whales and forests and fungi and stuff that we have no names for actually shape our experience, right? In a sense, it's not our experience. It's the world meeting itself. I forget the name of this professor. I think his name is Dan Ariely. And I was watching a video a long time ago about where he mentioned, I think he mentioned something about, um, anthropologists noticing that people who live near the ocean tend to be more superstitious than those who don't, right? Because, of course, the ocean is chaotic and the ocean is myth making. The ocean is dense. You have to learn to think about the world differently if you were to live in proximity to it, right? In a sense, it's not that the ocean is the background of believing, it's that the ocean is how we think. The ocean is part of thinking. The ocean is part of experience. Right? So when I say that experience precedes the one that experiences, I am expanding the psyche to include all of the world. That's it in a nutshell. But we can say more. Okay? Anybody else? Yolanda. Hi, Yolanda. Where are you calling from?
Well, I'm coming from a liminal space. I'm living in Algeciras, which is the border to Africa. I'm coming from Africa as well. And what I felt last time were two things. One, that whiteness was crumbling, right? And
Yes.
it was like falling apart. And we are all part of crumbling that, right? And for me, when I think it was your last question, this beautiful woman was saying that what I got to do for what can I do for whiteness to fall completely, and at the same time, I am whiteness as well, right? I am
Yes.
part of what is happening,
Yes.
and this sensorium place that you talk about,
Mm-hmm.
I am part of that as well. You know, like I am looking for ways to becoming aware of that, and at the same time getting lost totally in that. It is a way, it's an impossible place to be for me. And I thought that it was like so that is something that has been in my mind all the time. You know, like I'm putting together something related to music from the 80s, right? And I am relating your way of looking at the world, like how the 80s, instead of being a decade was
Yes.
it was like an entity that it was
Yes.
totally contaminating me. You know, like I see a lot of, even though parallelism, however, I see that I am part of it, and at the
Uh-huh.
same time I am looking from a distance because
Yes.
I'm totally contaminated with that, you know, and how that is, I am part of that is diasporic part of the 80s that is
I
still
I hear what you're
alive
saying.
in this moment, you know. So for me, like it is this place in which I see the cracks in that part of God that you were talking about, that it was an entity. It was like something that is moving, that God that it was
Yes. Yes.
moving, that at the same time is conscious that is God, that is conscious that it is what I am, and is also conscious that I am the crack as well, you know. So
As such. Yes.
it is very, very important for me all that you were since that I was so looking forward for this moment, because
It's
I kind of
unwieldy.
feel like I want to keep pulling from that
So
I
let's
don't know
pull.
what's taking me.
Let's pull together. Yes, it in an uneasy nutshell. We didn't create capitalism. There, I hear a lot of people say, let's take down capitalism
Yeah.
it's the switch mentality. It's how modernity teaches us to think, right? On, off, let's switch it off, right? What that presupposes is that we're outside of capitalism, right? That we are in a system. It's another linguistic convenience that we are in a system. So we are apart from the system, and so we can switch off the system.
Yeah.
We are in whiteness. So something is happening to whiteness, and we can observe it like we're watching a Netflix movie. Right. But no, we are capitalism in its sensorial operations. We are whiteness in its becoming. What's happening to whiteness when I speak about white syncopation? That's happening as us, right? It's not happening to us. We're not the recipients of these mass disabling effects. We are the effects, the afterthought, the echoes and the resonances of these cracking opens in the world, right? So it's again another modernizing ethic to presuppose that we are in the world instead of we are the world in its becoming. And that's a switch there, right? But Yolanda, yes, you're right. It's very unwieldy. It's the shape of experience. We're part of that mound, that hill. We're part of what, I've theologically described as God, right? Not a transcendence, not a depth, but a dialogic obliquity, a meeting in the middle that is constantly happening, right? Okay, one more. One more for ice cream. Okay.
What?
Oh, did I hear a voice? Someone? No? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Just in the last moment. Dragpa? Is that it?
Yeah, thanks, Bio. Thank you,
Welcome.
everyone, very, very much. Um, part that I mean, so many things stood out in your gorgeousness in the class last time. A lot of thank you. Um, that the ghost light, it's not about us. It's
Mm-mm.
about it's about the others there, and we're a part of it, but we're not the main part of it, and we're a part of it. And that's that
Yes.
lovely tension of we're in it and we're implicit and it's asking us to show up and be beautiful and messy and all the things, but it's really not about us.
Yes.
Yeah, that.
It isn't about us. I mean, the actors have left the stage. The spotlight is off. The searchlight is out. There's no audience. That's when the ghost light comes on, right? That's why you are right to intuit that it's not about us. We centralize ourselves in all our theories of change. Be the change you want to be in the world, or whatever Michael Jackson supposedly said, or Gandhi. I don't know who said that stuff. But you look in the mirror and be the change. Nah, it's not, it doesn't come down. The we are not the originators of ourselves. We are indebted to a world that exceeds us. To take this notion of entanglement seriously is to decenter the human who is supposedly the master of transformation outside of the world. And so this is why we need a ghost light, right? So thank you, brother. Thank you. And let us start with something that feels necessary following from the conversations that we had in the first session. The idea of God as the shape of experience, Renee Good's theological sermon saying to that police officer, that ICE
I'm
agent
not mad
rather,
at you.
I'm not mad. I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you. Almost like I'm not focusing on you. You're not the point, right? I'm looking at the field, and I'm not dismissing you either, but the field, the principalities, the logics, the colonization, the magisterial, managerial logistics you know, that maintains this carousel of toxicity. I want to be in touch with that. And this is me speculating about Renee Good's remarks, right? And of course, that analysis led us to notice how whiteness is syncopating. And in its syncopation, it is alarmed. And so it's doing its darndest to eat the cracks that are showing up, to eat all of them. This is what gods do best. They eat up the cracks. They maintain the cracks to sustain their shapes, right? And we spoke about that and how when gods are hungry, they migrate to the center of their own forms. literally exemplified in ICE agents leaving the borders, so to speak, and coming to catch them in the center, right? Um, Something I did not share or describe, which is part of my new writing, is what I call white shift, is when whiteness does not know what to do and how to differentiate between the permitted and the sacrificial. Black bodies, brown bodies are usually the sacrificial. The permitted are the white-bodied, right? This is again not to say whiteness is reducible to white bodies. That's not the point. But that whiteness understands or exemplifies or avatarizes or deifies white bodies as as proper, right? This is what it does. And so it sees them as you are permitted, you are free to move around, but the sacrificial, not quite. If you jaywalk, you will go to prison for 30 years. I'm exaggerating, but you know what I'm talking about, right? But when that mechanism is unable to distinguish between the permitted and the sacrificial, then it's hungry. It will eat anyone. And maybe that's why the most publicized um, um, killings were of Renee Good and Alex Pretty, right? It will eat anyone, anything that gets in the way, which tells you that whiteness is not white bodies or white people, right? As James Baldwin said, there's no white people. It's not. It's a deeper, more fundamental logic of power, right? But all of this brings us to democracy. And what's happening in the United States. My professorship is, of course, of American studies. And I grew up in the global South. And to grow up in the global South, in the parts of Africa like I did, is to be constantly inundated with the theology of America's greatness. We were told right from birth that there is a city set upon a hill, and this city is the near perfect exemplification of democratic values, and that we were inadequate in how we organized ourselves, and we were to look to this shining city to learn how to do it right, okay? We were underdeveloped. And so the thing to do is to learn from the best. And so I didn't learn about Tafawa Balewa or Obasanjo or our own leaders. We learned more about America's leaders. We learned more about your histories. We learned more about your wars. We learned more about Jim Crow. We learned more about the great pursuit of happiness. These are the things we learned about in school in Nigeria, right? And in many parts of Africa. But then we started to learn something else. It's the hidden underbelly, the shadows of democracy. We started to learn that the United States was complicit in the killing of Lumumba, who was a Congolese activist and leader. We started to learn that Bring Back Our Girls, you might have heard of just during Obama's time, Boko Haram kidnapped more than 100 girls in the north of Nigeria. And Michelle Obama famously held up a hashtag that went viral. It said, Bring back our girls. That was a shining moment of solidarity across the world. The deeper story is that a United States cohort of senators picked up the phone and called a group of mercenaries who were employed to bring back those girls and told them, don't you dare do that. Because if you bring back those girls, the incumbent president of Nigeria will gain political currency, and we don't like him. Right. so would prefer the girls to remain incarcerated so that we can keep on this charade of freedom. And so we started to learn also that it's not that we were failing at becoming real democracies. It's that when you get dumped on and when the trash of modernity, computer screens are dumped in your backyard, it's very hard to show up in the ways that democracy tells you to show up. And so, in a sense, what we're witnessing in the world today has been called a decline in democracy. 72%, I think this is data from 2024, but 72% of the human species are living under authoritarian systems. In the United States, a lot of people, including Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Z, I'm not actually sure of what those categories mean, but a lot of young people are talking about their lack of confidence in democracy, right? Just a while ago, scientists pushed the doomsday clock closer to midnight, 85 seconds away from midnight. Fascism is on the rise. Nation states are closing their doors, and it's increasingly difficult to champion democracy as has been ideally taught to us as kids. So I have a question then. And maybe the question I have to start this class is the same question you have. What do we do about this? I think that's what brings us together in Ghostlight. What do we do about it? What do we do if democracy is in decline? What do we do if authoritarianism is on the rise? What do we do if our usual modalities of responding to the crisis only seems to be part of the crisis? And my way of staying with that question is to ask you a question. And I'd like to hear some responses. It's what feels obvious to do? Not what's the right thing to do. What feels obvious to do about the problem of the shocking decline in democratic values across the planet, especially in the United States at this time? What feels obvious to do? Jody?
It feels obvious to me to, in a very, very hyper local way, start taking care of people, including myself, and immediately meeting basic needs. That's what feels the most obvious. Also, to continue to look to, I work with disabled kids, I'm autistic, to look
Right.
to the folks that are on the outside for the wisdom,
Yes.
but hyper local.
Yes. Thank you, Jody. Important work. Thank you. Anyone else? Letitia?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm betting in strengthening my nervous system, and I'm betting on finding ways to do that for other people because I trust this lowering pace move, being with what rises.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Letitia. Thank you. Anasuya? There's also beautiful responses in the chat. Fall down on our knees and beg forgiveness. I'm hearing that. Yes. Anasuya,
That's one of my
what would you like to say?
good morning,
Yeah.
good morning, evening, tomorrow for
Morning,
everyone.
sister. Okay.
In addition to the importance of mutual aid and like really getting like who's going to be around who's support system, because I know every people around the world, but that ain't going to help when the grid is down.
Yeah.
But one thing I'm getting more and more certain of, if there's such a thing as safety, is that this is a wake-up call to stop being someone else, to stop the mask, to stop doing what you're supposed to do, to stop being who you're supposed to be, to stop this mask wearing. And you came here to be, whatever your divine purpose is, whatever you incarnated to, this is the time to do it. Because in my opinion, a lot of the chaos is people doing whatever capitalism tells them to do, society tells them, religion tells them to do. And so they're inauthentic. And in a very authentic environment, not only we do in alignment with the universe, we get in alignment with the flow of we're no longer one the rest of the universe, because the universe knows its purpose. The tree knows what's here, knows the birds, everything knows why they're here, but humans tend to not know that. Can you
Thank
hear
you,
me?
sis. Thank you, sis. It was breaking for me. I'm not sure if it was the same experience for everyone else, but it was breaking for me. But I heard and felt the gravity of what you were saying, sister. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Um,
you.
my grandmother and mother, Brenda.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much. And he says grandmother and mother. And again, as probably I'm usually the eldest person in any room, and I am 83, and I'm a dance culture. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I am a dance scholar and researcher, and I'm too old to go out and demonstrate. But I am indeed, I have some pension money and a dear husband who's sitting across from me. What we do is philanthropy. I have, since that guy came into the White House, I have been giving to legal things. So again, ways in which one can simply, in the mess that we are all in, to help a little bit with the Abolitionist Law Center, all the many people of color, Black people in general, Black men in particular, who've spent their lives being unjustly tried and are in prison. So I give money to that. I give money to the individuals, to the Palestinian Children's Association, um, to the ACLU, to all of these things, and in my research. So all my books have dealt with, and I have studied people like Mudimbe and the wonderful couple, Margaret Drewell. I'm again reading the Yoruba ritual performer, play, and agency. And all of those things have formed part of my research, the books that I've written, and those things are now at least channeled people to people. I agree with the first person who talked about the need for your small groups, your cells.
Yes.
The people who wrote about the love. It's like nothing else. And all the leaders we know, Baldwin, of course, Dr. Martin Luther King, wonderful
Yes.
John Lewis, they have all emphasized that love is the answer. So that's how I'm going. And I'm so glad that I found this group. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mama Brenda. Thank you so much for your words and your presence. Not held lightly.
Thank
We
you.
hold your presence
Thank you.
with beauty and gratitude. Ease, you be the last, and then I'll segue to something else.
Um, yeah, I think the things that feel obvious to me are to like go to the trash and see what's there. I just went and got a bunch of flowers from a dumpster, and then like following the hunch that it was Valentine's Day and there would be a bunch, and there were. And then I got to drive around and give people flowers. But I think the like to remember, to return, to be in circle intergenerationally, like feel like the things of like tending our hearts and tending, I think asking the question of like, what are you tending?
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you. And of course, there are others with their hands up. We will get to we'll have these conversations. I just want to keep things moving in a bit. But I want to say this just before I get into the slides that I've um, prepared, that when we go to our computers, we type in a prompt, the expectation is that the computer responds, right? It's immediate. You don't have your computer saying, let me think about this request. Except your computer has a mind of its own. Then the expectation is immediacy, right? In a sense, the obvious operates that way. We imagine that what's obvious is automatic, is immediate. It comes to us, and that's exactly what should happen. My suggestion and theoretical provocation as we enter into the thick of our session today is that the obvious is not so obvious, that the obvious is subsidized by lives, by many dyings, by technology, by things that we cannot see, right? That the obvious is spread out in gradients, in mountains, in grids, in villages and communities, right? Even with our computer screens, you use AI. Does anyone use AI here? You go to ChatGPT, you type in something, right? The expectation is that chat responds immediately. What's hidden in that sliver of response time are Kenyan bodies or Congolese lungs, right? It's all the things that are subsidizing immediacy, right? My invitation for us is to notice when the obvious stutters, that the obvious is migrating today. And so those moments where we feel this is the obvious thing to do, fine. But the invitation of now is to notice that the obvious is not so obvious. And that might be where we locate an emancipatory politics, right? Because the point is that what's obvious has led us mostly into repetitions, into toxic cycles, right? The obvious and pragmatic thing to do is to call your senator. But what if your senator is part of the establishment that deepens the crisis? What if what if the political does not serve at this moment? That's the invitation of this class writ large, that the obvious is stuttering, it's trembling, and in its trembling, we locate possible lines of flight away from the so-called pragmatic, away from the morally policed obvious thing to do, to find ourselves in possible fields of sensibilities and play, at trash cans, playing with roses, and the discardations of Valentine's Day, right? That's the gift of this session. So let's go into it together um, and see where it takes us. Please tell me if you can see, my beautifully rendered slides. Can everyone see this? Thumbs up? No? Is that a thumbs up from people?
Yes, we can
Okay.
see it.
Yes, we can
Okay,
see.
good. Okay. So we're back to Ghostlights of the Political. And today, February 19th, we will be discussing this idea, democracy dies. I borrowed that from the Washington Post, democracy dies in darkness, right? But I mean something very different. And we're going to stay with this. This class was so dense as I was preparing it last week and moving through the nuances of it through this week. That I decided to break it into two parts. So this part one is called The Children of the Minotaur, and it's built around an essay that I wrote many years ago when I was the inaugural Global Scholar for the Othering and Belonging Institute, which is based in the University of California, Berkeley. The children of the Minotaur, the shrinking citizen, and the declension of democracy. This is what this part is called. But part two, which will be February 26th next week, is called The Death of the Rational Voter and the Second Fall. Very long title, forgive me. There's a lot that, it's a limited series, obviously, but there's a lot that I hope that it can feed and nourish in our questions, in our quests, in our experiments, at this very weird time. Okay. So the second part is the death of the rational voter. This is the children of the Minotaur. Let's get into it. So let's start with this very, very seminal question that has no easy answer. Where did democracy come from? Does anyone have a clue? However you want to respond to it, it's fine. If you say you descended from aliens, that's okay. We'll play with it. Well, we often speak of it as if it's ahistorical, right? It's the right thing to do. It's the perfect form of organization. It's the only way we can convene bodies, right? So does anyone have a clue? Let me see the chat and what it's saying. From the people, from the yearnings of the people, the Greek, from heart and soul, right? Right. The American model is based on the Iroquois and other indigenous models. Different answers. Beautiful. I like classes with different answers and not just one correct one. So let's talk about this for a while. Historically, there was this dude, and I will recommend the essay. I would share this essay at the end of the class. It's called the Children of the Minotaur. You can just type that in Google and it should come out. I wrote about Clisthenes, and he is historically understood as the father of democracy, right? Herodotus actually says this Athenian statesman is the man, in quote here, the man who introduced the tribes and the democracy, right? Prior to that, there were tribal affiliations and groups based on kinship in Greece, obviously. But then Clisthenes was the great reformer, right? And as I write here, and this I think I picked out exactly from my essay from, is it up to 5 years now? 4 years? Clisthenes guided the aristocratic metropolis through bone-deep democratic reforms that transformed the citizen body into new assemblies, right? I think like 10 tribes or something. He organized, he made it neat and tidy. This is what Clisthenes did. But it's important to note that this dude, his reforms were redistricting, right? It was organizing the Athenian population into 10 new tribes based on geography rather than kinship. It was a somewhat violent rendering of bodies to accommodate new patterns of relations, right? So as I write here, it's significant because democracy was therefore born as spatial reorganization or redrawing of boundaries or reshaping of territory that produced a new kind of subject, the citizen subject. It was remapping. That was what Clisthenes' reforms did that gave birth to the term democracy. So in a very, very powerful sense, the people didn't choose democracy. The redistricting produced the people who could then appear to have chosen it, right? It's right there in the etymology of democracy. The word itself, democracy, is demos, which now means people, and kratos, which is power and rule, but demos did not originally mean people. It was speaking to place, right? The demos was a place before it gradually, evolutionarily became known or signified as the people. The people were an effect of the place, of redistricting and drawing of boundaries, the parsing, as I write here, of territory into legible units. This is really critical. I'm not saying this is the only reading of democracy and its origins that is possible, but this particular choreography is trying to do some work that I hope meets the absurdities of this time. This is not some anti-democratic spiel. This is really an invitation to stay with the hidden and the invisibilized, okay? Also about power. Kratos is not just power. It's the power of holding, it's seizing, it's right, prevailing by holding still, right? There might be some game nerds here who have heard of this game character called Kratos, who is incredibly violent. There was a mythological figure as well, named Kratos, who was the one who helped Zeus to bind Prometheus to the rock that was called Caucasus. Um, so this power to bind, to produce by binding, is Kratos. So as I write, democracy at its roots is the binding force of territorial accommodation, the power that holds a bounded district together by organizing bodies into legibility. So, a quick question for you. Which came first? Again, I would invite your responses. Which came first, the binding or the people? By the way, if you respond to this, you win $50,000 from Letitia and Anasuya. I'm kidding, of course. Which came first? Would anyone like to, one person at least? Uh-huh.
Are
Anyone?
we talking about what came first in terms of democracy?
Yes, it's
For democracy to work, you have to have the power over. So I guess for
yes.
me, it's the
So that's the
binding.
binding, right?
Yeah,
So the binding came first. Anasia, did the chicken come first or the egg? Chicken or egg? Which came first?
You see, I can validate both of them coming first. I have an argument for both sides. Um, well, you have to have a mother to produce an egg, but then you have to have an egg to have a mother. So you can't none when I the bonding
Yes, yes.
I can
It is a trick question, I
that's how
admit.
I see
It's a trick question,
it.
definitely. Um,
But
yes,
then you need to have people do what you want them to do and be able to manage, organize them, and have them be completely obedient. That's the
yes,
binding.
that's the
But I
binding.
think the need to control is there, whether they're people or not. The need to control and to organize and to dominate in a hierarchical way
Yeah, yeah.
is binding.
So let's work through it. Here's how I'll respond to it. Um, Neither. There's a theory, and I need not introduce it here except in this very limited way. I call it dispriority, which is my way of saying that we often like to speak about origins and the products of origins, or the father and the child, or the mother and the child. But I like the psychoanalytic twist on that, that the child is the mother of the parent, right? Or the child is in some sense doing parenting work. If there were no child, there would be no mother, right? There's a disprioritization happening, an asequentiality, right? Which one comes first? The chicken or the egg, the binding or the people? I suggest that the binding and the people are co-emergent, right? The redistricting, what Cleisthenes did, produced the demos it claimed to represent. And the demos authorized the redistricting it claims to precede, right? To the demos, to the people, we are the ones deciding democracy. But they would not be able to say that if the redistricting did not happen in the first place. So it's the origin is unclear. When we speak about the origin of democracy, we get into quantum murky territory, like all origins tend to do, or stories of origins. So I suggest here that the relationship is tilting, though, because the binding exceeds the people the way the mound exceeds the bones. The accommodation has gravitational effects that none of its constituents authored, right? And in a sense, this is the reason why democracy can never deliver on its promise, because it promises rule by the people. We all know the stuff, right? Rule by the people, of the people, for the people, right? It can never really deliver because the people are an effect of the rule. And the demos can't govern itself because the self of the demos is a product of the governing, right? It's 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 almost like a Mobius strip, right? It will continue to push forward in a sense of claiming that one day we will arrive, but like the ants in a death spiral, it goes in complete loops and then gets exhausted. I'm trying to choreograph what might be happening today, not in terms of a simple quick fix or solution, but to look at the mycelial field and what it is betraying about this operational system we tend to believe is ideal. And I'm not suggesting some replacement plan, right? I'm not offering new accommodations. We're just feeling our way through the walls and the hallways of this space. So I suggest here to go further, because it's not even simple to say Cleisthenes was the originator of democracy. Origins are not that neat or convenient. There's this author named Nancy Evans, and she suggests that Cleisthenes was not the first democratic reformer. He was building upon foundations laid by generations of Greeks before him. I want to focus on one of them. His name is Theseus, right? And in many regards in the literature, Theseus is considered the founder and king of Athens, a contemporary of Hercules, the killer of monsters, the upholder of democracy. And I want to focus on how Theseus teaches us about what is happening to democracy today. Theseus is our focus. And I'll be telling this story, so let's just play with it, okay? This is my retelling of the great tale of Theseus and the Minotaur. Does everyone here know about Theseus or the story of the Minotaur? You do know about it, right? Somewhat. Jessica is doing this. Somewhat. Um, I will tell the story as it is classically told, and then I will corrupt it because that's what I do best. I will corrupt the telling so that it does some other kind of work. So it starts with Aegeus, who is the king of Athens. He does not have a child, and so he consults the oracle, right? The oracle does not really give an answer that um, soothes Aegeus. But Aegis sleeps with Aethra. I'll skip the kinship ties here and just go right to the telling because of time. Poseidon also sleeps with Aethra, and Aethra gives birth to Theseus. So Theseus comes from this murkiness. Who's his real father? Is it Poseidon? Is it Aegis? Nobody knows. So Theseus has this duplicitous origin. He's divine and commonplace, his mythical and historical, fleshly and ethereal, all at once. Now he's living in a different city, separate from his father, his human father, Aegeus. Aegeus returns to Athens, but lives um, he leaves a sword or some weapon for Aethra and says, when our son has come of age, give this to him so that he can come and claim his birthright. And so Theseus, when he comes of age, he's this boisterous, amazing kid, right? He decides, I'm going to Athens and I'm going to take my throne in Athens. But he chooses the hard way, as most of these Greek heroes tend to do. He does not just go the easy way. He goes by way of brigands and robbers and killers and murderers. And he basically goes on a rampage on his way to Athens. He kills everything. Everything that stands in his way, he kills. He's good at it too. In my sense of things, this is the archetype of the hero in the making, the colonizing passage, the hero who clears the wilds to make room for civilization. In a sense, this is what our dear uncle Marco Rubio said in Munich just a while ago when he said, when he spoke to the great glory of Western civilization, the irony, going over his head that Western civilization has always been based on blood and killing. He spoke about it as a glorious thing, but let's not dwell on our uncle right now. This is Theseus. He's clearing the path, just killing everything on his way to Athens, making room for civilization. When he arrives, he hears about he falls, of course. Aegis welcomes him with a great celebration. But then he hears that Athens has a contract with a nearby place called Crete. And this contract is such that 7 boys and 7 girls every 9 years are fed to a beast called the Minotaur. Theseus begs his father and says, let me volunteer. I'm good at this thing called killing. Just let me loose and I will go and take care of this beast. So he volunteers, he goes with the boys and the girls, and they get to the island of Crete. And he takes a string because to get into the Minotaur's place is to lose touch with the outside world. You can never return. No one gets in and comes out. This underground labyrinth was reportedly built by Daedalus, who is the father of Icarus, right? But that's not the story we're telling now, right? So Theseus, with the help of Pasiphae, enters into the labyrinth with a string to trace his way out eventually. He comes across the Minotaur, and a battle of epic proportions plays out. He fights and he weaves and he dodges and he finally strikes the killing blow and kills the Minotaur, you see. And the Minotaur falls to his death. And the story continues classically because Theseus comes out and he's rewarded with, of course, there's a tragedy that plays out because Aegeus dies and all of that, but that's not the point of the story. He wins, you see, and it is this killing that becomes the foundational sacrifice that gives birth to democracy. The death of the Minotaur is the killing of the final monster. Democracy cannot stand monsters. Democracy needs discrete lines dividing you from me, the voter, right? If all of us were to be infected with an extraterrestrial fungus that immediately merges our skins together, democracy will not be possible because it will be difficult to distinguish between us, right? That's why it needs discrete geometric lines and cartographies. And Theseus's killing of the Minotaur is the sacrifice that makes this possible. Okay? So that's the classical account. Now let's bend it a little. Theseus missed a spot in my imagination because somewhere in the labyrinth were the kids the children of the Minotaur, little bull boys and bull girls, hidden in the shadows. Theseus missed them, right? So what happened was that they came out after the fact of the killing, saw the Minotaur's body, their father's carcass. I write here, mourning their father's carcass with hideous, soul-curdling sounds that rippled through the walls, but didn't quite make it past the walls. And then the children found the string, the same one that Theseus had used to trace his way out of the labyrinth. And then they traced their way out into the world at large. And my bending of this tale is that those children, those little Minotaurian children, flowed out into the city like an unearthly swarm, and they creolized the walls of the buildings, and they hid in the shadows, waiting for a time to show forth into the world. And I think that time is now. That's my bending of the story. What does that mean? What am I trying to say here? Who are the children of the Minotaur? The children are what the accommodation of democratic citizenship produced but couldn't metabolize. They are all the ways our experimentation in discrete legibility is breaking down, right? They are the ethical tensions showing up in moral containment. The monster within. The things that are happening now are not external attacks. They're the deep inconsistencies buried within the very formulaic logic of this arrangement that is coterminous with neoliberal subjectivity, extractive capitalism, and whiteness. Yes, this is coming from within, the tension from within. It's not so much a decline as it is a declension. Declension is not decline. The archaic sense of declension is a decline, right? But a declension is more like the sense of a reckoning, like the conjugation of a word so that it produces its deeper meanings. That's a declension. We are meeting a reckoning, in the words of one of my very good friends who is here. We're facing a reckoning, right? What are the children? Examples of the children: AI and the crisis of authorship. This one is dear to me because I'm a writer, or I consider myself a writer. I don't think I do consider myself a writer any longer. I don't think I ever did, actually. I think I'm learning to see that the author has never been me, right? I have many stories of people writing to me and saying, I asked my AI to write like Baya Komalafe, and it produced a beautiful text. And I'm rolling my eyes because I'm also feeling insecure. But then I read the text and I'm shocked at at what has been produced, right? But AI is not, people are speaking about AI these days. I mean, of course, for years now. And we're speaking about how it threatens artistic integrity, that we're facing an attack from AI, but it wasn't produced from the outside. It was produced by the citizens' own logic, our own quest for optimization, efficiency, and control. Now, that very quest is destabilizing the very foundations of selfhood. The idea that we are the ones that write, we are the ones that decide, we are the authors, we are the originals, right? And so it seems these are the tensions cropping up today, the children of the Minotaur. What's next? Microplastics in the brain. These are just examples, right? Scientists are warning, of course, that not only is the Anthropocene coterminous with the shrinkage of the brain over time, global warming coterminous and concurrently shrinking the brain, but that we are facing this insurgency of microplastics in the brain. And this has democratic implications. But microplastics are not an external intrusion into a bounded self. It's our own industrial metabolism that produced microplastics, our own attempts to have clean lives and clean domesticities. And now these things are lodging in the brain tissue of our thinking. And this is a Minotaur's child. Climate chaos and democratic failure, that's another example of the Minotaur's child. Africa is prime in my thinking here, right? Because last year or so, Macron wagged his finger at Africa, basically telling us that we are not good recipients of democratic values, right? While they took colonial colonial monies and funds that have been going on for over what, 100 years? Just paying those monies to French accounts. All the coups that have been happening on the African continent, the moral analysis is that, oh, democracy is in decline. We need to get Africa back on the track. But what if these coups, this insurgency of instability, what if they're not failures of democracy? What if they are democracy showing its real face? Right? It's what democracy produced as its undigested remainder. Pandemic failures. We all know that COVID did not come from outside of civilization. It's not, strictly speaking, extraterrestrial. It's how we encroached on ecologies and burst into land spaces and fields and decided to build parking lots. It's the industrialization that comes with the freedom that we allotted to ourselves. The citizens' own world flattening operations opened the gap. The virus is a birth child of the Minotaur. These are the children of the Minotaur, the tensions within that have been hiding and lurking, and now we are meeting them. They're the cracks, and we don't know how to put them back in the family way. Right? So here's the point in my waxing poetic about the children of the Minotaur. The point isn't that there are problems to be solved. In case you're hearing it as that. Now, how do we solve for AI? Or how do we solve for this? Or how do we solve for... No, it's not that there are problems to be solved. As I write here, the point is that they were produced by the very accommodation that now struggles to contain them. These are the children who found the string and traced their way out. I'm sure you can come up with many other examples if you stayed with it a little while longer. Right? Many other ways that the world is spitting up stuff. And the realm of democracy, which is already, readable together with whiteness and neoliberal subjectivity and neurotypicality and capitalism, right? How all of this is showing its hidden tensions. And all of these tensions, all of these insurgencies, all of these eruptions, the eruption of declension, right, is giving birth to what I call the shrinking citizen. I do not mean that we are literally shrinking, because the citizen is not you. The citizen is not you or me. The citizen is the field that makes us possible. I'll say more about that. So the citizen is shrinking together with global warming, pandemics, the rise of artificial intelligences, so-called freedom masquerading in masks, the rise of social algorithms and technologies that police and surveil our bodies, the identificatory technologies that we pass through in order to give offerings to the altar, at the altar of the gods that maintain predictability, all the ways we are keeping ourselves safe, and all the ways that safety itself is repudiating our attempts. Right? The citizen is shrinking. You are not the citizen. We are citizen subjects, if you will. But the citizen is the vast ecology of repressions, extractions, flattening logics, surveillance, and forgetting that produces the citizen subject. We learned through the likes of Walter Rodney and how Europe underdeveloped Africa that it's not that we were developed, it's that we were introduced into a spectrum that we did not ask for, right? And then we were tagged underdeveloped, right? It's not that we lacked democratic values, it's that it's that the global nation state order needed a warehouse, needed a place as its dumping grounds, needed the CIA and its surveillance tactics, needed the repression tactics and the regime change tactics in order to buttress the idea of a city set upon a hill. And this is the citizen that affords the citizen subject its claims that it is free and it is able to choose the next leader. It is the suffering of Congolese children. It is the toxification of the Niger Delta. It is the ongoing death of other worlds in order to sustain. It's that Theseus logic and script playing over and over again. You need to kill the monster to make the citizen subject possible. Keep killing the monster. Keep killing the monster so that the citizen subject can rise legible and beautiful. And that operation is in crisis because the cracks are proliferating and the citizen subject is weirding out and shaking because the citizen is shrinking. The conditions that make it possible to manufacture discrete, autonomous, rational, separate citizen subjects are hollowing out. The liberal humanist worldview, the idea that we are masters of the realm, the idea that freedom is a property of the self, the idea that we are distinct and separate from the world, from ecologies, from densities and intensities. That worldview is decaying under intensifying post-humanist, technological, globalized conditions. It used to be easy to just solve our problems, right? It used to be easy to just say, all we need to do is get some money, get some goodwill, and throw our money at the problem. The world is easier to define than good versus evil, right? But then this crisis means that we have no epistemological or ontological privilege any longer because the guardrails are coming undone. And so we have to meet the monsters, the children of the Minotaur that have been living with us but are now showing forth. So it's important to note here what I write, that the shrinking citizen is not a decline, right? In the ways that analysts are writing, oh, this is a decline in democracy, like it's a problem to be solved. Let's get back to the operating system. But what if this is the operating system? What if this is not an interruption of the operating system, but the deepening intelligence of the system, learning its limits? That's why I say it's not a decline, it's a declension, a maturing, a yielding to the elements, an exposure to forces that the accommodation always depended on, but kept on the ground. I will never forget the account of Brazil and its attempt to host the Olympics. When was this? 20 something? Can't remember. But in Rio de Janeiro, they were digging up places to impress the visitors, right? And the IOC. And in doing that, they happened upon the bones of black bodies that had been imported into the country via Cais do Valongo, right? They were so shocked by it that they had to call the priests and the priestesses to pray on those grounds. They saw trinkets and beads and tears codified, and ossified into bones. And what's important to note here is that modernity and its attempt at peace built its surface upon those bones, upon those rushed and hurried graveyards. The graveyard of democracy is the Minotaur, the things that are emerging now. Sticking with the bones seems to be the work we have to do, in my humble opinion. Not covering the bones, not flattening it out to impress the visitors, but staying with those bones in their unwieldy and awkward appearing seems to be the idea of making sanctuary, right? As the world comes undone, the work seems to be to stay with the pieces. The shrinking citizen is therefore the proliferation of cracks in the body of citizenship. It's not about us versus them. It's not about what the right or the left is doing. It's that the entire edifice is crumbling and we're losing the stability that afforded us even the ability to distinguish between us and them. The Epstein files are an example. Behind the scenes, the left and the right gather in shadowy places. The same routine is not possible any longer. The declension and the emergence of these moments force us to reckon with the limitations of politics. Just so we are reminded, cracks are destabilizing forces and events that disrupt the dominant ontology of whiteness hyphen liberalism hyphen democracy. I think this is or might be a good place to end. Where do you feel the citizen shrinking in your own life? And I'm not talking about politically, like, oh, I don't vote anymore. That's not what I mean. I mean sensorially. Where does the idea of, or the promise, because democracy is a cognitive system. This is what we will talk about in the next class. Democracy is primarily a theory of cognition. It's the idea of magisterial autonomy. That's what killing monsters effectuates. It kills the monster so that you can claim that you are autonomous, that you are divorced from ancestry, that you are not possessible, right? I'm playing with the idea of possession um, from the Afro-diasporic traditions in Brazil, where bodies in ceremony are suddenly possessed by orishas. Now, such an idea would be scandalous in modernity because we presume that we are the owners of ourselves and these interiors cannot be taken. But what if the interior is a side effect of ecological, technological, civilizational arrangements? Then the interior has always been exterior, right? So the question I want to leave you with is, where does the promise of autonomous selfhood feel like it's flickering? Where are you in scandalous entanglement with the other, right? Where are there monstrous tentacularities with things around you that was not supposed to be the case? Where are you losing it? Might be a good way to sum that. Where are you losing it? Um, Maybe I will leave this for your reading. Because it goes into some things that I shared in a previous class, what an accommodation is, the shape of experience. This is just like a reminder, the shape of experience. It's not a container of experience, it's the shape that experience takes, right? And I'm just going about to suggest that the shrinking of the citizen is how our accommodations are spitting bones. right? I distinguish an accommodation from an assemblage here. Some philosophy that informs my own philosophy. But please read this. I'll share these slides at the end of the class with everyone. Accommodations are gods. Remember that? A god is an accommodation. A god is the shape of experience. And a god is a pouring. It's not a static thing. It's a pouring. It's the constancy of process. Gods are practices. Gods are practices. Identity is a practice. Everything we can lay claim to as ours are accommodated by other lives, other postures, other invisibilized presences and absences, right? And that is what an accommodation helps us feel, the obliquity of relationships, how things have never been balanced. Democracy might preach equality, but democracy itself is based on dead bones. It's based on things that do not appear. And this is not to pathologize it. I'm not saying down with democracy. I'm saying we are meeting a reckoning. And we must touch this moment fully, or else we would rush back into the fray and repeat the same logics that we think we're outwitting. So let me end with this question. If the citizen is shrinking, if the conditions that produce the autonomous rational self are eroding, then what happens to the voter? Right? What happens to the voter? What happens? How do we consider the MAGA hat wearing Trump voter? How do we consider the voter on the left? What happens to politics then if the very conditions that makes political legibility possible are eroding? It's not a trick question. It's a question that I hope you sit with in your spaces, and we will meet next week. We have about 10 minutes. I hope I I did better with time management here, which is a horrible phrase, time management. But thank you for listening. I want to share with us, I would like us to speak with each other. This was very difficult to say. Well, I want you to know that even though I feel my vocation and my invitation is to speak things that might appear troubling, I must speak them anyway because of the worlds that are often hidden in the speaking or in the not speaking. And so it's important to say these things now so that we can, with deep honesty, with a radical accommodation for the disfigurement that is happening right now, no less serious than the murder of people on the streets of this beautiful country. It's important that we stay with this moment, not to gloss over it back into the platitudes we're used to, or to rush into codes that we know how to say. It's not a rush back into the familiar. It's a staying with the reckoning. And that has no solution to it. I promise no solution. I promise you, if you leave this class with a solution, get your money back, even though you didn't, whatever. But if you leave this class limping, unable to walk straight, then the work has started. Then you're available for something else. Okay. Is there, I just want to leave space. We have 9 minutes. That's amazing. 9 minutes. Is there, okay, Letitia, you're first.
I thought of coming back. So when I hear the question, what am I losing? I had a lot of feelings within the body.
Yes.
And I tried to look for a word, and the word that came is prejudice. I am losing prejudice. I am I don't know, like a tension within myself is diluting. I allow myself to hear to witness the one that thinks that knows,
Mm-hmm.
and the anger.
Mm-hmm.
So I have said before that I get cynic about um malicious or malicious, but like control atmospheres happening around the world.
Yeah.
Uh, and the demonstration of surprise I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
And I notice as I say this how used to them some people have become, and how for me the loss of prejudice gives me hope. It gives me space to connect with what seems to be different than me,
Okay. Okay.
even what it's me. Hmm.
Hmm. The beautiful statement, this idea of the loss of prejudice and that is theoretically significant. It's almost like you spoke about a dilution of edges. It's almost like things are becoming porous. That is powerful to hear. That is powerful to hear. Andrea?
Thank you so much. One of the things that has been calling me in the last several years is to open the doorway again to the more than human world,
Right.
specifically through horses. Horses have been calling me very, very deeply, and their non-hierarchical power with way that they orient within their herd and the
Yeah.
intelligence of the individuals, and also the collective field of the wisdom of the herd itself,
Yeah.
and the both and of those. And I've recently been diagnosed with a large mass, and my approach to it is one of gratitude. I love how you speak of the monster and accommodating the monster. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
seeing it truly as something to extract. I'm seeing it as something to teach me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm incorporating mushroom and plant to support me in my healing.
Mm-hmm.
The larger ecosystem in the
Mm-hmm.
world mirroring the potential for growing laterally into the larger ecosystem of what I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so your words are like nourishing compost for me. And I am a big smile every time I hear you speak. Thank you so much for your wisdom
Thank you,
there.
Andrea. Thank you.
Yeah.
And your journey produced surprise and healing for you and those around you.
Thank you.
Um, is there something else that wants to be said? I read a comment that said I feel physically sick. Is that right? And I felt my body saying yes, yes, yes. They're archetypal. They're stories in um especially Greek, since we're sticking with Greek mythology here, about gods born from nausea, right? It's almost like nausea precedes the birth of new arrangements, right? Zeus, I think, um, which god climbed out of his head? I'm losing my nerdish privileges here and in
Athena.
access to Greek. Athena, thank you. Thank you. I knew someone would come to the rescue, right? Nausea, it's almost like this tributary, this threshold of crossing, right? And we often avoid it. This is why we are kept safe and comfortable within burning houses. And this is why Martin Luther King said, the house is burning, we have to look at it, right? We have to stay with this burning. And I would suggest that the work has begun. It doesn't need to cohere into a task list or a new political manifesto. The nausea arriving is the work showing up. The grief arriving, the dissolution of edges, that's the work showing up, not spiritual bypass. This is not, this is not spiritual bypass. This is not generative conversation. This is staying with the thickening and allowing sensoriality to materialize in new ways. Is there Miriam Ahmed? Sounds
Thank
like.
you, bye.
Sister, are you from anywhere in West Africa?
In Pakistan, actually, I'm from Pakistan.
Oh, you're from Pakistan. So West Africa. I was right.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we're the same belt, you know. We totally are.
Yes.
Oh, with bio, I feel vindicated on a body level because democratic, quote unquote, democratic governance has always felt like an imposition, a very alien colonial imposition on the lands where I come from.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
like, and for very many reasons, including all kinds of corruption, Pakistan hasn't seen democracies lasting more than a single term.
Mm.
And I always, I felt gaslit because I was like, is there a problem with us? We just,
Yes.
as a citizenry, cannot seem to hold this thing, which is supposed to be superior in all the things. And yet, like in my body, I have felt that in these lands, we have very different governance and it's communal. There's a very big difference between democratic and communal.
Yes.
And we have always governed in circle.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that was taken from us. And this democratic governance, quote unquote, superior stuff was just shoved down our throats. And we could never really, we kept regurgitating it. It didn't settle, it didn't metabolize
Yes.
in our
Yes.
bodies. And
Yeah.
it became toxic. It became like the mass that the previous speaker has been talking about, like a cancerous, toxic mass.
Yes.
And now I feel it being regurgitated here in the center of empire. And I'm not so far away now. Like I live in Canada now, and we're
Mm. Mm.
feeling the ramifications of what's happening south of the border all the way here.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And on some deep body ancestral level, I feel vindicated.
Mm. 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 Ah, thank you, sister. It's important for us to hear this as not a, so you're against democracy, what else is there? It's better than fascism. No, it's not that. It's not that. It's not being against. It's noticing that in carrying the burden of an arrangement, some sides are prickly and some other sides of it are smooth, convenient to the touch. Other sides are prickly. The people who have been holding the prickly sides, the reckoning is showing up right now. So it's not about, okay, so what's your solution to the market? It's not that. We're not, this is not about seeking a solution to it. It's just about sitting with the tension of that, sitting with the tension. There is, and I think I've said this elsewhere, for those traveling from the east to the west, from Asia, for instance, who would go through Abu Dhabi or Qatar or Dubai, Doha to come to the United States. There is a facility called pre-clearance, and you might know about this. Pre-clearance is a major facility in these Asian airports that allows people to come into the United States while they're in a different country. So you literally have people having their passport stamped, and you have an official, saying, "Welcome to the United States" while you're in Dubai. "Welcome to the United States" while you're in Doha, right? The the legible reason for this is that it affords people, they don't have to line up when they get to JFK. They can just land as if they're in a local airport and just skip immigration lines and get to their bags and go into the country, right? But behind this convenience is the globalizing of empire, right? It's bureaucratic, it's algorithmically convenient, but it still it still insinuates this spreading of a project, right? Welcome to the United States while you're in Asia. And that is what my sister here is speaking to. It's the spread of a logic and our invitation to sit with that logic, not to solve it, but to notice its shape. And as it reckons with us in this moment, when the very city set upon a hill is in crisis, right? This is not a time to get back to normal. It is a time to sit with the sprouting bones. I want to just take one more. We're in African time now. Christy.
Okay, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to just be in your presence and here together with
Me
everyone.
too, in your presence, sister.
Um, I feel like when you're asking the question of what are we losing and also what are we sitting with, I feel like I'm wanting to lose separation,
Mhm,
wanting to lose answers, I'm
mhm,
wanting to lose innocence. Um, I do a lot of meditation and I'm very interested in the Zen koans and how they leave you wondering. There's no solid answer. And
mhm.
I'm kind of trying to sit with kind of becoming what I'm calling like becoming imaginal and
Right.
but also returning to the truth that's been hidden. I like to work, I'm a therapist and I work a lot with like Jungian concepts in the shadow. And I feel like what you're talking about is like all this niceness and all this proprietary, all this whiteness that's just been hiding all the darkness
Mm,
of their soul, of the soul, uh,
mhm,
concept of democracy and what it's built on. And
mhm,
the nausea is so, I like that point about the nausea because like in my own life I'm trying to like see the fullness of my humanity and not be diluted by my innocence.
mm,
Like see the parts of me
mm,
harmful, and I want everyone to see those parts of themselves because
mm,
I think we get kind of caught up in this separation of bad and good, like I'm good because I'm doing this thing. Well, you're not good and you're not bad, but you're not fully innocent, and there's a darkness inside of your heart and soul, like potentiality of who you can be harmful and
right.
unstable.
Right.
And how do we like sit with who we are first and also with love for ourselves under that condition
Mhm,
and love for
mhm.
others that are struggling in that same condition so that we can all just be real-ish. I
Be
real
real.
word.
Be
I don't
real-ish.
know.
Thank you,
With the
Christy.
questions.
Thank you, Christy. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. I
Yeah.
will end on this note, just in conversation with what you just said and playing with it so that we can, that I was telling EJ, that's my wife, a long time ago, I said, I love Americans, US Americans, and of course, I love all the other Americans as well, but I love US Americans. I love the hospitality when we show up. It's so beautiful. The people, the kindness, the walking down the street and the smile, the slight nod. I started hiking, right, since 2024 when we moved here, and I've made jokes about, you know, people saying it's really great, just offering advice as you go on this rite of passage on the hike. It's beautiful. I've also said to my wife that Americans are some of the most polite people that I've ever met. But at the same time, I'm scared of that politeness. I'm scared of what lurks in the polite fences, the white picket fences, and the cleanly manicured lawns. It's scary to me for particular reasons. There is a dude on YouTube that opened an ICE hotline. It's on YouTube right now. I forget his name. I'll try and bring it to class in the session, in this next session. And he started to get people uh, to call him. People started to call him. Of course, he's playing jokes on them. They don't know what's happening. But people are calling him and saying, I would like to report that neighbor. I can't see into his house. I don't know what he's doing, and I'd like to have him deported. You can hear this conversation. People are calling to make believe ICE hotline spaces and asking for people to be deported. These are the most polite neighbors, right? Americans are the only people that line up to get down from a plane to disembark. We don't get down from a plane, where I come from. We just rush to the door, right? Whoever can get to the door first, you right? But it's line by line, and I've observed this ritual over and over again. I'm like, wow, just look at that go. Look at the politeness. But politeness can be the condition of repeated colonial relations. Right? You can be polite and still have a nervous system that cannot tolerate anything that feels like it doesn't look like you, right? And this is what's happening right now. Under the cover of politeness, a lot of things have been allowed to fester, right? And these monsters are being repressed again and again. I think it's time for an airing, an aerating process to stay with their reckoning, their coming forth. And maybe in doing that, we might make sanctuary and meet ourselves like Christy invites us to in the realish realms of possibility. Okay, African time is done.